since the war broke out. We're now seeing President Zelensky in his office. Tell us more about his message that just came out tonight.
Well, Volodymyr Zelensky has been target number one for Russia from the beginning of its invasion of Ukraine. And perhaps in response to that, the Ukrainian president returning to his office this evening and issuing this defiant message saying that I'm not afraid of anyone. I remain in my office. But also, sadly, another target of the Russian advance appears more and more to be the Ukrainian people. We're seeing that every day in multiple cities, and I do want to warn our viewers as we go to our story today that many of the images are disturbing.
Russia is closing in on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Russian tanks on the streets of Irpin, just west of the capital, with heavy fighting all around the city. This video captures the moment a Russian airstrike hits Kyiv. When the smoke clears, the devastation becomes clear. The airstrike killed an entire family, 2 adults and 2 children. The New York Times showed the horrible aftermath on their front page for the world to see. In the south, Russia is assaulting the port city of Mykolaiv. NATO says Russia is using cluster bombs, a weapon widely banned due to risk of civilian casualties when used in populated areas. This rocket landed unexploded in the zoo. In the town of Mariupol, which Russian forces have now surrounded, citizens lined up for water. Their homes cut off from utilities for more than a week.
We're absolutely sure that the aim of Putin and the Russian army to kill as much citizen as possible.
To date, the UN has confirmed more than 406 civilians killed in Ukraine since the start of the invasion, while emphasizing that the real figures are considerably higher. Still, the U.S. military is pointing to problems Russia is having with its advance.
The Russians continue to get frustrated and slowed down, and they really haven't made any noteworthy progress in the last few days, with the exception of down south.
Ukrainian leaders are trying to inspire and strengthen their people. The mayor of Kyiv posted this video of his visit to a maternity ward.
Life goes on. 82 kids were born just in this hospital since the beginning of the war.
Russia says the third round of talks with Ukraine did not meet its expectations, as Ukraine's president, in a new interview with ABC News, invited the Russian President Putin himself to come to the table.
What needs to be done is for President Putin to start talking, start the dialogue, instead of living in the informational bubble without oxygen.
The U.S. and NATO allies have accelerated the flow of weapons into Ukraine. A senior U.S. official tells me they have sent 17,000 anti-tank missiles, 2,000 anti-aircraft missiles. The U.S. and Poland are now considering sending fighter jets from Poland to Ukraine, according to a White House spokesperson. Though the office of Poland's prime minister tweeted, quote, Poland won't send fighter jets to Ukraine. Polish officials say publicly they're worried such a transfer could make their country a target for Russia.
Part of the Ukrainian president's strategy throughout has been to show the Ukrainian people, but also Russia, that he is still standing strong, doing so defiantly. Here are the words that he had this evening for the Russian president.
Залишайся у Києві, на Банковій.
Here I am. I'm staying here on Bankova. I'm not hiding, and I'm not afraid of anyone.
Щоб перемогти.
Another message he had was about these continuing negotiations to establish quote-unquote humanitarian corridors, saying that while the Ukraine and Russia have agreed to those corridors, he says, and we've seen evidence of this, by the way, Wolf, that Russia has continued to target civilians, perhaps deliberately, in those corridors, perhaps deliberately targeting the paths that these civilians are trying to flee the cities from the fighting. I spoke to the deputy mayor of the city of Mariupol in the south again today for the second time in the last few days, and said that the evidence he's seeing, and it's not isolated to Mariupol, is that civilians who try to use those corridors end up targets.
Yeah, President Zelensky, clearly a very courageous leader Jim Sciutto on the scene for us in Ukraine. Thank you very much.